Committing the genocide in Gaza has completely blown a gaping hole in the Israeli economy. Their debt is climbing. It's climbing towards levels that they cannot comfortably sustain. They can't comfortably service. As I said before, their credit ratings are falling. They were downgraded, which means that they'll have to pay more for any money that they borrow from here on out. That's when a country starts to become willing to accept terms that they would have never accepted before. They're under extreme structural fiscal stress, Israel is. Israel's 2025.
Oh yeah, Israel's so desperate now economically that they're willing to accept things that they've never been willing to accept. So when all of the world is coming, and even in the West, even Canada is saying that we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. The UK is saying that we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. You have the largest royal wealth fund in Norway who's divesting from Israel. Basically, the entire world is telling Israel, stop this genocide. Stop ethnically cleansing Palestinians and starving to death and pushing them out off of their land. Stop it. Israel is so desperate that they're obeying, right? Israel is so economically in a corner that they're just obeying whatever the world is telling them, right? Right, Bolsen? So this is why what he's saying makes no sense. If Israel truly is that desperate, why do they just keep doing what they want to do? Like, why are they still engaging in the same program that they've been engaging in since October 7th, let alone 1948? Where is the evidence that their behavior has actually changed because of influence from the outside or because of their desperation? Where's the evidence of that, Bolsen?
Deficit guidance sits at around 4.9% of GDP. And that could blow all the way past 6% or 7% if things continue to grind on as they have been and as Netanyahu has said he plans to do. You understand? Their debt is projected to be 70 to 71% of their GDP in 2025, 2026. That's from the Bank of Israel. You have severe labor shortages in Israel because of their calling up their reservists, their mobilization of reservists, plus the loss of Palestinian workers. That's choked off construction. That's choked off services in Israel. Even with imported workers from India and elsewhere, the Philippines, Bangladesh, and so on, you're still something like 100,000 workers short. That's just for the construction sector. About 10 to 15% of the Israeli workforce has either been called up as reservists, or they're otherwise non-productive because of mental illness, because of PTSD, suicidality, and what have you. Not to mention how many of them have been killed, how many Israelis have been killed, and how many have fled the country. Okay, so that's the situation. Now, when you and I look at that.
All right, that's the situation. Israel is in dire straits. Economically, they're on the brink of collapse. Isn't that a good thing? Like, isn't that a good situation? Like, don't we want to help that along so that happens faster? The economic collapse of the Israeli state? Like, isn't that something that we should be encouraging?
The only thing that we see is the damage. That's what we see. But an economic hitman, a predatory investor, they see opportunity. Opportunity for control, opportunity for leverage. So this is a hard thing for most of us to wrap our...
Oh, do you see that zoom? The zoom to emphasize. Oh, the hitman sees an opportunity for investment.
Heads around. That's what I was talking about how we look from different strata. So resistance and opposition looks one way on one strata, and it looks a whole other kind of way on another strata. You understand? It depends on what level you're at. It depends on your level, and it depends on your resources. So for us, for most of us, at our level, from our strata, our opposition and our resistance looks like protests. It looks like boycotts. It looks like, death to the IDF and so on. But on a higher strata, on a higher level, with greater resources and so forth, resistance and opposition operates entirely differently. It can even look like the opposite of resistance for those of us who are on a lower level, you see. So for us, we boycott, for instance. We don't buy. But when you're in the strata of an economic hitman, when you're on the strata of a predatory investor, you don't boycott. You do buy. You buy. You supply. Because at the level where you are, you can purchase dependence. You can buy disempowerment. Do you understand? So say, for example, you become the manpower supplier for the Israeli labor market that is short of labor, especially for construction. So you become, or you say you buy, or you establish 2 or 3 or 4 different firms, manpower firms, that provide labor, imported or exported manpower from another country, migrant labor. You sign MOUs with Indian and Filipino recruiters, and now you control 25 to 30% or 40% of the migrant labor pipeline going into Israel. That's control. That's a dependency. You identify a weakness.
So did you get that? So there are different strata of resistance. There are different levels. At the low level, the level of idiots and Muslim Brotherhood operatives, like the idiot level, boycotting Israel is resistance. But if you're at the higher level, where you're doing 5D chess, at the level of the Arab monarchs, at the GCC ruler level, where you have wealth, actually to resist Israel means to send it investments and cash. And, oh, you have a worker shortage, you can't really build and develop? We're going to send you workers. We're going to take Indian and Filipino workers, and we're going to ship it to Israel to build your settlements and to rebuild your high rises. That's resistance. That's resistance to Zionism at the higher strata, at the higher level. But you peons can't understand that. You peasants, you idiots, can't understand the genius of Shahid Bolsen and MBZ and MBS and these Gulf monarchs. You can't understand their resistance. They're actually doing the more effective resistance because, as I said, there's this gaping hole in Israel's economy. And if you fill that hole and you swoop in to save Israel with more investment, with a labor force, flush Israel with cash to ameliorate the economic hole, the economic problems that they have, that creates dependence. Oh, now you're dependent on us. And that means control. We can control you. You have to follow our dictates now. So this is, by the way, like okay, I'll make this point. I'll just make this point now. The normalization that the UAE has had with Israel goes back to 2020. It's been 5 years of nonstop investment that the UAE, that the Gulf has put into Israel. Billions of dollars, tens of billions, maybe hundreds of billions have gone from the UAE, from the Gulf into Israel. Where's the control? Where's the control that the UAE is now exercising over Israel? Wasn't there dependence that was created, Shahid, according to your genius geopolitical insight? So shouldn't that 5 years and hundreds of billions in investment in Israel, shouldn't that have created control where the UAE can tell Israel, hey, maybe stop genociding Muslims, maybe let in aid trucks at least so they don't starve to death? Apparently, the UAE has to invest maybe trillions, maybe tens of trillions of dollars need to be invested before we get the full control that genius Shahid is envisioning here.